Hey beautiful people, how's it going? My name's Brittany and today I'm doing a slightly different style video. I'm going to be doing a handstand tutorial video. And I'd say it's geared more towards people who are beginners in handstands or towards the beginner end of their practice, because honestly I feel like I'm still very much a beginner when it comes to handstands. I get a lot of requests for tips on how to do handstands because I love sharing my handstand practice through my Instagram account and my Insta story. To share a little bit about my handstand journey, I just love doing handstands. I did when I was a kid and I was not very good at them, but it was just so fun to get upside down. I didn't have a gymnastics background. I wish I did. And then about, I don't know, 3 to 5 years ago, I'd say 5 years ago, I just started kicking up into a handstand more often and using the wall a lot of the time, or just going over into a back bend. And then about 3 years ago, when I started getting serious about partner acrobatics, I realized I want to start getting serious about my handstand practice as well, because I feel like the two really benefit one another. This year, I did a 3-month handstand intensive online training with Jean-Luc Martin, who runs the San Diego Circus Center, and that totally changed my practice. I haven't been practicing consistently since then. I was doing 2 hours a day, about 5 to 6 days a week, and my handstands were the best they've ever been. My body was definitely the strongest it's ever been. I was also the most tired I've ever been. So I've taken sort of an extended break and I'm excited to be getting back into training. I'd say probably about 2 or 3 times a week. I'm gonna try to keep this video pretty short and sweet and just stick to a few main tips on how one can go about learning to do a handstand or bettering their handstand if they already have a handstand practice. I'm gonna be teaching a straight body handstand. At least that's what I'm calling it. Some people do a more like a bent over back handstand. So they have like a little bit of a banana back going, and I'm gonna be focusing on, in today's tutorial, how to have like a straight hollow body handstand. It's really, really helpful when learning handstands if you can have a spotter, and a really competent spotter. Conor and I did our handstand training together during that 3-month period, and it was such a big reason why we were both able to get better quickly. But you can also use a wall, and I'm going to be showing how to use both a wall and a spotter. This video definitely isn't going to have all the things that I recommend having for an excellent handstand training practice. I mostly want to give you a few tips, things that I think could help pretty much everybody who's working on a basic to intermediate level straight body handstand practice. With that being said, I really recommend supplementing with other information and using common sense and just taking care of yourself really well. So the first thing that comes to mind around that is making sure your body is very warmed up. Another point that feels important to emphasize is how much I have learned and continue to learn that having an excellent handstand is about conditioning and practice and repetition. If you think about it, we learn to walk standing on our feet, and then we proceed to, most of us, walk on our feet the rest of our lives. So we have so much practice standing. Compared to that, how much time do we have practice standing on our hands? It's super small and insignificant, comparatively speaking. So if it's feeling frustrating that you've kicked up into 100 or 1,000 handstands and you're still not getting the form that you want, that really makes sense, and it's okay, and I invite you to just keep doing it. Also, the body really needs to build the strength that it takes to hold our bodies in that space, because again, it's not something we've been doing since we were a little tot, and we need to condition our bodies. Let's talk about form. In a hollow body handstand, the aim is to have a very straight body. You may see some people practicing handstands and they have sort of like a banana back, or maybe they're doing a contortion handstand and they're going for some different pose. In this practice, I'm just gonna focus on doing the straight body. I think it's for me, it's the most challenging. I think it takes the most muscle and proper alignment to stack our bodies that way. And from there, we can modify. You can do like a more contorted handstand. You'll know where your line is and how to alter it. An important thing to understand is the hollow body shape. That's going to be a big part of what builds this handstand for us. And the best way to see it is visually. We can do it starting standing up. You can also practice hollow bodies on the ground. They're still very challenging to do and take a lot of strength to do standing on our feet or on the ground, and then significantly more, you know, when you're upside down and also focusing on balancing. Conditioning hollow bodies is a great practice whether you are standing on your back or actually inverted doing a handstand. You can also do them inverted in a headstand, a forearm stand, and so on. The second thing I'm going to talk about is shoulder alignment and having open shoulders, but not too open if you happen to be hyper flexible. Most people tend towards the side of not flexible enough in their shoulders and have to incorporate working shoulder flexibility in their routine. And the third thing is the squeezing everything basically. Okay, Connor, our spotter and demo extraordinaire, is going to do a hollow body hold, a standing one, and I'm going to sort of talk through what you want to be focusing on while you're doing this. Great, so this is Connor's hollow body. If he arched, it would look like that. So he's gonna squeeze in hollow, he's squeezing his glutes, he's squeezing his legs together, he's lengthening through here and curling in his upper rib cage. He's reaching out through his shoulders a lot. He's pressing towards the sky. He's working really hard. He's squeezing his biceps towards his ears and his arms are coming back. If they were forward more, they'd look like that. So he's really actively bringing them into this open shoulder position. That's the hollow body form, and good conditioning for that can be doing drills where you're holding sets of maybe 30 seconds of the ones that are standing or laying on your back. They're definitely something that require a lot of strength. Basically, if you're not working hard in your handstand or in your hollow body, you could probably be doing a better job. You could probably have a stronger line and a stronger handstand. The next element I want to talk about is the arms, the shoulders, elbows, wrists, hands, fingers. And let's start with the fingers. So in our handstand, it's going to be really helpful if our fingers are super engaged. So basically, I want to have my fingers, see how there's this like space between my knuckles, and if I try to pry my fingers away, they shouldn't come off. In an ideal handstand, we have a completely straight back body, and we're overbalancing ever so slightly into our fingers, and our fingers are sort of balancing us. When we're standing up straight on our feet, you don't see us like go slightly off balance and then we try to compensate with different limbs of our body. We're always making micro adjustments in our feet. And so that's what our hands are going to become. They're going to become our feet. So balancing in the fingers and even like scooping a little bit with the heel of your hand if you start to underbalance. It's nice to turn the hands out just a little bit so that your pointer finger is going straight up. If you put your hands down straight, your pointer finger is probably going to be just a little bit out, maybe up to like 5, I don't know, degrees, a little some degrees out. So you can turn them a little bit, and that also helps you turn the eyes of your elbows forward, which is something that you want to do. If you go like this, then you're more likely to collapse in your elbows, but if you turn them forward, now your elbows are locked out. Distance between your hands in a handstand. This is one area where I see a lot of people doing really wide handstands, and I used to do my handstands wider as well. As a rule of thumb, it's recommended to do your handstand about shoulder width apart. However, depending on how you're built, you might want them even a little bit closer. The reason why you want your hands so close is so that you can lock out your arms completely, lock out your elbows completely, and then your wrists are going to be stacked right under your shoulders. So before I even go up into my handstand, I start building it from the ground up by having my hands the distance I want them apart, my fingers are already really engaged, my elbows are locked out and turned forward. Now I have like the top of my handstand, or the bottom of my handstand. If you want to just practice the hands for a while, you know, get used to what the position is like, start putting weight into them, see how that feels. You can tuck up a little bit, you know, just get used to it in your forward fold, hopping around on your feet. You can do a plank. There's so many ways that you can get used to and start building strength and the proper form in your hands and your arms. If we put those two together, we have this straight body and we have these straight arms. Let's talk about the shoulders. This is the joint that's connecting those two parts together. We would ideally like for the shoulders also to be a part of that straight line. Some people don't have the flexibility in their shoulders yet to do that. So then their handstand becomes a little bit of that like bent and bent to compensate. It's definitely possible to build the flexibility in your shoulders. I've seen it with guys who are super strong or anybody, but it tends to happen more frequently with men who have a lot of muscle. Okay, so we've talked about the elements to build a great handstand. Let's do some handstands and talk about conditioning. A wall is an amazing tool to help you condition your handstand. A lot of people, I find, initially start practicing with their back to the wall, and while this is okay for certain things, it can help you build your stamina in your handstand. You can definitely build strength. It also can build poor form, and I think it's really worthwhile to build any skill with great form right from the ground up from day one, which is why I recommend doing belly to wall handstands. If it feels really scary to do a belly to wall handstand initially, that makes sense. I felt the same way too. It's helpful to have a friend or a spotter. It's also helpful to practice coming out of it and maybe easing into how close you are to the wall so you can get a sense for where you are spatially and how to keep yourself safe. There's a few ways you can get into and get out of these belly to wall handstands. I like to cartwheel in from the side. You can also do a plank and walk your body up. And then to get out, you could plank walk out the front again, or you can cartwheel up the side. You can also do a roll, tuck your chin to your chest and do a nice slow forward roll out. Probably the most effective conditioning drill for finding my line and holding it without a spotter has been these belly to wall handstands. And I like to do them in sets, and I'll often do 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 1 minute on, 1 minute off, and you can stretch during those minutes off. If a minute's feeling too long, you can start with 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever, and just add to it slowly over time. Once I'm up on that wall doing the belly to wall handstand, I'm working everything really strong all at once. You may be wondering why I have this piece of plywood on my floor that I'm doing these on. It's because doing handstands on a really nice hard surface is super helpful. Not only does it feel better on your wrists, but it's a lot easier because you have something solid to be pushing into. If you have a ground that gives, you're not going to be able to balance yourself as well. There are lots of different ways you can get into a handstand. Two of the most common ones are tucking up or kicking up. I practiced kicking up for so long, and I wished I had practiced tucking up in hindsight because tuck-ups for me are one of my weak links. It's really nice to tuck up as opposed to kick up because you're already in your nice strong handstand line, and it's really pretty, and it's a great foundational skill that you can build other skills on top of. Learning tuck-ups with a spotter, I think, are the best way to go about it, but you can also practice them with a wall. Same goes for kick-ups. And there's lots of different ways you can do a kick up. You can put your hands down first. You can start with your hands overhead and do this nice like gymnastics lunge. Play around with it however you want. If you want to play around with it with the wall behind you the first few times, that's a great way to do it too. Since you're going to be either tucking up or kicking up, it's important to know how you'll be coming back down. If you're tucking up, I think tucking back down is the nicest way. Same thing with a kick up. Tuck down or come down the way you came. But if you're starting to go over, it's nice to know how to turn out. If you have a spotter, of course, they can help you come back down the way you came up, but otherwise, turning out is really good. A nice way to practice this is if you have a cartwheel practice, seeing which way you naturally cartwheel, that'll be the way that you naturally want to turn out. If you don't have a cartwheel practice yet, I recommend starting with a cartwheel before you start a handstand just to get comfortable with how to turn out. It's nice to practice tuck-ups in sets with a partner or on your own. If you're having trouble with the tuck-up getting your hips over your head, you're not alone. This has been one of my struggles over time. Some people find it really easy, some people not so much. And it can be a combination of things. Usually has to do with the trajectory of your jump, getting enough jump, getting your hips up high enough, and part of that is opening your shoulders. It can be very, very helpful to have a spotting assist on this, because once our body gets the feeling of the form, it's easier to do on our own. But sometimes just getting a sense for it and trying to conceptualize it when we haven't done it yet can be challenging. We've gone over everything about getting into and out of a handstand. Now let's talk about holding a handstand. Tuck up, squeeze everything, try to find that really nice alignment, and hold our handstand for as long as we can. If we have a spotter, they can help keep us there. Thank you so much for watching this handstand tutorial. I know this is a lot of information. I most of all recommend just having fun with it, having fun getting upside down. There's so much to enjoy about that space and to be playful with. I know sometimes it can get a little frustrating. I have a tendency to at times take my handstand practice maybe a little too seriously, but overall it's just such a great exercise for the body, for conditioning, for the mind, and I'm sure for the heart too. So I hope you all enjoyed. Feel free to follow me over on Instagram. I'm gonna keep posting my handstand progress over there. Much love to you guys. Mwah. Bye.